first item of business will be approved minutes of last month's meeting. Motion by Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Wild to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, Mr. Yuzi, you're up.
Thank you. I have 3 action agendas on my, resolutions on my agenda, but I need to take one off, and the one I need to take off is the one to extend a contract with KMG Monitoring for adult services, and the reason for that is in last year's resolution, we put in a term for an additional year, so we don't need to deal with that, and that is for electronic monitoring of adult individuals. Typically, just to explain that quickly, we use that to, in lieu of jail in certain instances, particularly when we're using it for sanctions for our drug courts and our treatment courts. If an individual, if not for this program, is going to go to jail, we use electronic monitoring. We've also used it to assist some inmates who've had some medical issues in the jail that would cost the county a tremendous amount of money. We're able to get them out to do that. I know we've talked with bail reform about electronic monitoring as being a component. Recently, the state Office of Court Administration has indicated that we can contract with a private company as long as they transmit the data to us and they do not look at it, and we look at the data and we do all the monitoring, which we do. So we have this in place should we need it. And for electronic monitoring with bail, you'd have to have a qualifying offense, which would mean a felony or a misdemeanor sex offense or a misdemeanor DV offense. So the crimes are limited to it, and recently we met with our local magistrates, explained what we can do, what our limitations are, and we said electronic monitoring. We weren't sure if we're going to have it, but if we did, it would be on a limited basis. So again,
Are both the KMG ones pulled?
just one, the adult one.
Which one?
The adult one for $7,500?
Okay, the first one. All right.
Right. So we don't need to deal with that one. I just wanted to explain what it was.
Okay. The motion to approve the first one with Warren, Hamilton counties. Motion by Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor Moreno. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Pass. The second one is pulled. Third one?
Third one is a KMG. This is for juvenile offenders. And we use that for detention in lieu of electronic monitoring, in lieu of detention for our JD offenders and our adolescent offenders for raise the age. What we've also built into that contract for no additional cost is for KMG to do after hours, they call it a DRE assessment, detention risk assessment instrument. Before you can bring a youth to detention, you have to have a DRE done. And occasionally those things happen after hours. We built that into KMG. They can provide that, so we don't have to have any staff members on call or pay any overtime. They also assist us with after hours for raise the age cases should a magistrate arraign an adolescent offender after hours and we need detention. So those, they will help find a detention bed for them. We haven't had many, but it's a good thing to have in place. And we built that into the contract through the years at no additional cost.
Okay. Resolution to extend the contract to KMG for juvenile and adolescent. Somebody want to make that? Motion by Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Sokol. Any discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else for discussion?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob.
Saw you on TV. Good job.
Thank you.
Do you have a question for Bob?
Got a brief
I have a
face for
question,
radio.
Bob. Bob, with the
About
new
the
change
staplers?
coming with the bail reform, do you think, and if they make any changes coming forward, do you think maybe the monitoring might come back more into effect for adults?
I don't think they're going to make any changes. I think that they're going to let the law go through. A lot of people are advocating. A lot of people are starting to, particularly on the Republican side, have press conferences in talking about the limitations of the bill and what we can do and how it's not adequately funding. So I believe that they are not going to make any changes. And the concession OCA made with the electronic monitoring was to allow us to pretty much do what we're doing as opposed to spending the money to do it in-house or contracting with a nonprofit, which do not exist. They knew that that was a problem, so they wanted to make it so it was available because a lot of places do it similar to us on a small degree. So I can't see that they make many changes up front, and The Office of Court Administration indicated that they will notify defendants. We haven't seen the plan, but again, that's something we told them we're not set up to do that at this point. And we've met with our local judges who are very good, and we've told them our limitations, and I think they appreciate that, and we will help the courts to the extent that we certainly can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. All right, Tammy DiRenzo is going to handle the assigned counsel for Joy.
Matt, do you have an agenda?
Assigned counsel. Okay. We still
Okay, Joy couldn't be here today. She is at a training session, so she asked me to handle her one item for action. It is actually a new contract with Legal Aid Society. There you go. Yep. Legal Aid Society, it's Oils Distribution 9, and it's for $45,000. It's a 3-year contract.
Motion by Supervisor Sokol, second by Supervisor Merlino, to approve the contract with the Legal Aid Society. Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any other questions? Do you have anything else for review? That's it?
That's all she had.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to the next.
Geez, Tammy, I think you're just as quick as Joy is.
That's right.
Office of Emergency Services. You're up. Morning.
Morning.
Welcome
Thanks,
back,
Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My part of this presentation is very, very small. Obviously, as you know, I have had back surgery and I've been in and out working from home, but the bulk of the infamous Halloween storm and everything else that's had to been done with that, with your highway supers, you guys, and everything has a yeoman's job done by Ms. Drexel here, so she would like to give you an update on that.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Amy?
Brian. Okay, so I'm going to repeat myself a few times because of the emails that I sent out to everybody, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page. First, I want to talk about individual assistance. We utilized United Way 211. We did a push for about 2 weeks trying to get as much information as far as damages to businesses and personal residences and stuff. And at this point in time, we haven't had enough damages. People haven't notified our office of enough damages to allow us to go any further with the state. It doesn't mean that if I don't hear something at this point in time, I don't want people calling 211, that's closed, but if people want to call our office and say, hey, I just found out that I can call your office and tell you that my basement flooded and my furnace isn't working and stuff, I'll still take those phone calls and we'll still try to do something, but at this point in time, we haven't had enough damage here in the county that we can document. So, on to the preliminary damage assessment. As you all know, 2 weeks ago, the state came into Warren County. We worked with your highway superintendents and went through the county 2 days, 2 teams, and we came up with like $4.5 million worth of damages that we saw at that point in time. So they were doing this throughout the state. When the state could verify that they reached their threshold, they contacted FEMA. We're still in that 30-day period from the Halloween storm before the governor has to request it from FEMA and from the president to get that presidential declaration that we want. So this is why FEMA is in town. They came to New York State last week, from what we've been told. They've been in the Capital District area this week. They were in Saratoga County yesterday. They're in Montgomery County today, and they'll be in Warren County tomorrow. I know my email, there was a typo. It said December. I must have been sleeping when I wrote that. It really was November. It's tomorrow that they're coming. We only have 1 team and 1 day, so obviously there's no way to see every single bit of damage. So some of the jurisdictions have no damage, which is great. Some of them only have a little bit of damage, so we're probably not going to hit the towns that only have a little bit of damage, and we're going to do the hot spots. And we have Soil and Water is participating, DPW obviously is participating, your highway superintendents have been absolutely wonderful getting us those pictures and those damage estimates and stuff. And when I call them at some ridiculous hour, whether it's on the weekend, early in the morning or late in the evening, they've all accepted my phone calls and given me any information that I've requested. So please let them know how thankful our office is for that information. We have noticed after we did the first state PDA that there was additional damages. Town of Johnsburg alone has, I believe, 94 miles of road. They were not able to look at all of their roads to do a proper damage assessment when the state came in. So subsequent to that time, they have gotten us additional information. DPW has also found additional information of damages and stuff that they've gotten to us as well. So if your jurisdictions have additional damage that they found, please send me pictures and dollar amounts as soon as possible. We'll make sure that's included in that full tally. Other than that, I'll be making phone calls this afternoon to let those jurisdictions that I'm planning on visiting tomorrow know a tentative time frame. Out of the people that are here representing, Stony Creek is the only one that I may possibly see, and I'm going to call Neil later on today and talk to him. But since you guys are so far west and south, probably not. You know, it all depends on how long it takes us to get through. But I still appreciate everyone's help.
All right. Thank you, Amy. Anything else for Amy? Sure.
Even you have the rail quarter damage also, right?
That's one of the things that DPW got to me afterwards. Yeah, I'm going to get some pictures from Tim Benway and stuff. And it doesn't matter, just in case anyone's curious, it doesn't matter what the county decides to do with the railroad at a later point in time. It was damaged, and so we can include that.
Supervisor McGowan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. It doesn't matter if FEMA gets to see the whole area now. If they get a gist of the major damage, the smaller areas will be covered too. That's just my concern. I mean, fortunately, we can't split up FEMA, you know, in quarters and send each one. But thank you very much, both of you, for all your hard work, and Brian for working from home during the disaster there. I know, but I was so shocked for Amy getting an email Saturday, you know, on a nice day that, you know.
You're lucky you only got an email.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you both. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
For all your work. Okay, next up would be... Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
Y'all seem so far away.
Okay. You have the floor.
Okay. There's one item that I will not be requesting today. That's item G. I'm going to pull that from the agenda, and I'll just explain that as we get down to it.
Okay.
But most are pretty simple. The first one I know has been subject of much conversation, and I've been getting myself caught up to speed, and that's the contract for Correctional Medical Services. I met with Brett Bevington, the president of that company, and I just wanted to find out what their organization was about, what they were going to bring to us, what we should expect for them, for their services. And not really with a lot of background, I was impressed. And I've since met with our correctional administration, I've met with the nurse supervisor, and I know from a taxpayer's perspective, the most important thing they're going to do for us is reduce our expenses by $168,409.50 annually. Beyond that, in speaking to people in the know, the company offers more stability. They offer more training to our medical staff. They have a tremendous amount of support. The billing takes place at the corporate level. It's not something that Nicole is going to be required to do. Mr. Bevington explained that the week before January 1st, he's going to come in with a team and start the transition with our staff and make sure that everything is in place so January 1st we can hit the ground running. Subsequent to that, he's going to take 2 weeks and keep a training staff on site to make sure that all of our medical providers understand their policies, their protocols, and to make sure that we're in a good place before his team walks away. And beyond that, we're never left alone. I feel very comfortable from what I have been exposed to that we're going to be in good hands with this company. So I'm requesting a resolution to enter into a contract with Prime Care for 2 years.
Okay. Somebody want to make that motion? Okay, we have to wait for Matt? But we can make a motion. No, we have to wait for Matt?
Jim, I just wanted to make sure the 3 million, was that per year, or is that for total, the total for 2 years?
That's, the amount that's listed is 2 years.
Okay.
We have to wait for Matt to come in. So we wanna-
Have to wait.
No, I know, but can we talk?
How's Matt gonna know?
Do you wish to speak?
I just have a question.
Sure.
Who'd we use before?
Correctional Medical Care, now it's known as Qualis.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was a different name.
Yeah, this is the first year with these people.
Yes.
But you were impressed?
I was impressed. Again, I don't have any background in medical services. I have no background in correctional medical services. I have a background in speaking with people and, reading through the BS, and, this guy was legitimate. And they're in other correctional facilities across New York State. I have not myself reached out to those sheriffs. Sheriff York has, and Niagara County is one. That sheriff, he's going to select them. I'm confident that they are going to provide us with good services as well.
Now, did you talk to our caregiver now?
Qualis?
Yeah, Qualis.
I have not. And from the sheriff's perspective, the concern is there may become an adversarial relationship if we explain this to them too soon, and that's why I think there's been such a delay. And I don't know the time period when we'll make that notification, if at all. I know that for now that's left in the hands of the sheriff and the county attorney to determine.
You got a certain amount of time before you have to tell them, right? No?
No. The contract with CMC terminates automatically at midnight on December 31st.
Okay.
But they were informed yesterday that they will
Okay.
not.
Any other questions before we take a motion? Yes.
When we have multi-year contracts, Mary, there's outs if things aren't working right. That's always part of a resolution. Good.
Supervisor Wild, did you have a question?
I do. Jim, is this a lump sum or is it hourly kind of not to exceed? Because we have bail reform.
I believe it's a not to exceed.
Not to exceed, but an hourly rate.
Well, and it's based upon an average daily population of 100 inmates.
Okay.
And there is not a provision in there for a reverse per diem, meaning that if we're below that average, we are reimbursed or not billed for those funds.
I think we should probably think about that, right? Because we're talking about our jail population possibly reducing in half.
It is something that I have been thinking about. I don't have an answer for you as I sit here. I know that we're in the 9th hour, and I
we
would
need to
defer that question to our sheriff.
One more question from Supervisor McGowan?
Yeah, so what you asked, Mike, is, and what you said is, if we drop down below 100, say we go down to 60, what number we've heard, there's not a reimbursement.
There's not. There are no provisions for any reduction in cost.
Is that something that we can, because with the bail reform, and it's just not happening to us, it's happening across all the state, is that something that possibly we can negotiate with them, or I mean, it's not something that's happened in the past. This is something really new, because most jails don't drop that quickly, but as of January 1st, everybody's hitting the road, from what I heard.
That's an unknown.
Yeah,
Right.
I was going to think, Jim, along the same lines, is there a certain staffing that they're required to have here that...
There is a staffing matrix. I don't know if that's outlined in the contract that I provided to you, but I do have that. And their staffing matrix goes above and beyond. It provides for a better service than what we're receiving now.
Let's see.
Isn't there some mental health provisions in this one too, Jim?
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're saving some money, but I'm wondering if we're leaving something on the table by not having some provision.
It's an unknown, though. I mean, I don't know, what is your population currently?
We're in the 80s. As of yesterday, I want to say it was 80.
So it's shrinking.
I anticipate that January 1st, if everything goes through, we'll have around 40 inmates.
But we're going
I
to
don't know how
staff the
that will
same.
stabilize or
It's
where that
gonna
will be
staff the same,
by June and where we'll be by this time next year. I anticipate that will climb back up.
Right.
But exactly how much, it's really difficult to project.
So,
That's looking at our numbers now of unsentenced inmates.
60%. So this, actually, Mr. Chairman, In the contract, section 1.14, it's like the third page in, on the left. It says the average inmate population of up to 180 inmates. Have we ever been at 180 inmates?
We were pretty close throughout the summer. We were at a point where if we got another inmate or two, we were going to be boarding out.
Okay. Is there any chance, Jim, that we might be able to go back to these guys and say, what's the rate? If it's 60 inmates, 40 inmates? Still be able to get this done in the time frame?
When I had a conversation with this gentleman, I was looking at the services. I wanted to make sure that they were sound as an organization. To be honest with you, I didn't get into discussions about billing. I've not been a part of any of those conversations. Those were all handled by our sheriff. And again, at this point, I can't speak intelligently on it. I would have to defer to Sheriff York, and I don't know what that would do to delay this and our entering into a contract and any lapse in medical service.
But we are required to have medical services over there, so, I mean, what's your opinion?
Isn't the pricing based on the inmates that we serve?
It's based on an average 100 inmates.
The quote is, but what about the actual payment structure?
There are no provisions for reverse per diem, so if we run at an average of 60, we're not billed lower than that amount.
So we're billed at the 100?
Yes.
Okay.
We might better board in.
Pardon me?
We should try to board in. Any other discussions? What's the pleasure of the committee?
I'm torn, because we don't have any time to renegotiate, and we have to maintain these services.
We have to do this, it's required.
But I would really like to see if we could
Maybe we should
possibly-
open up, afterwards, approve the contract, and then sit down and have discussions with them.
Mary, did you take a look at this to see if there's any possibility for us reopening this contract on, February 1st or something like that?
I looked at the contract I was provided. We are going to request quite a lot of changes to it. I did not ask about the number of inmates, though.
Okay.
They submitted a proposal, and that was part of their proposal.
So if we approve this, then Mary can do her thing.
I think we certainly can talk to them and, as we go along.
Right.
We just need to get coverage.
The process for getting this contract is the sheriff goes out for quotes. So it's not a formal RFP. It doesn't have to be because it's medical services. So it's up to the sheriff the sheriff doesn't even have to get quotes. The sheriff can just go with a company that the sheriff believes is the best company. But Sheriff York last year and this year went out for the 3 quotes. And it's incumbent upon the sheriff to negotiate what's in that contract. So if we get a contract now that we think can be improved next year, we can certainly do that.
That's what I was saying. So somebody want to make a motion motion by Supervisor Wild, second by Supervisor Simpson. Thank you for coming. Any other discussions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 2, the amended budget for the school resource officers.
That's simply accounting for the school resource officers in the budget, adding them to expense and revenue items for the second half of the school year.
Okay, somebody want to make that? Supervisor Wild, Supervisor Morlino. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Resolution to amend the county budget for the PSAP grant. We had some expenses that came out of our public service answering point grant that were not accounted for in the budget. That amendment is simply to account for those expenses.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor McGowan. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay, the contract with First Light.
We have 2 existing contracts with First Light, actually 3 now, but 2 here before you, and we're just seeking to extend those contracts. The second request form down at F should date back to 12/28 of 2018, not 2019. There's an incorrect date on that form. Beyond that, it's just extending our current services with them.
You want to make a motion by Supervisor, you want to do C and D and E?
Yeah.
Motion to approve D and E. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor McGowan. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Create a position of correctional officer. You want to explain that, Jim?
Yes, I do. Currently, well, once we make this change, we have a position in our correctional staffing of inspector. That inspector's position is going to be deleted from our budget, and we are going to add a position of correction officer. It may seem like it's not prudent to do that action right now with bail reform coming into play. So the correction inspector position was one that was in our staffing analysis and serving under the correction officer position. So we're technically not adding a position, we are just putting back in the corrections officer position that's required under the staffing analysis. So it's not an additional item, it's something that's required.
So basically, you're renaming.
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Somebody want to make that motion? Motion by Supervisor Sokol, second by Supervisor McGowan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item G, I may be coming back with this just so that you can clarify. It was brought to my attention that our emergency response team has been utilizing services from a paramedic out of the city of Glens Falls. And the city, understandably, would like to be billed for or compensated for his services any time that the paramedic responds with our emergency response team outside the city limits. I think that's fair. I understand that. I got an hourly limit. But then in communications with Chief Schrammel from the fire department, I learned that they are expecting us to also reimburse them any time that that paramedic is out with us in training. So we train monthly, $50 an hour, $400 a day. We're going to incur expenses of around $5,000 a year to have a paramedic with us training. I understand the need to have a paramedic. I think that our officer safety is paramount. I want to have more conversations with the city and try to figure out exactly where we're at with that before we make any amendments to that contract.
So we're going to hold this one?
Not going to do anything with that as of yet.
All right. H?
H is just simply amending the existing contract with Six Flags. Earlier in the year, our undersheriff negotiated an agreement with Six Flags where we're being reimbursed accurately for the overtime hourly rate for each specific employee. There was language that was in the contract, either left in the contract or put in there incorrectly, that states that we pay a flat rate of $70,000, and they just are asking us to remove that line and to have the contract read that we are actually billing them for the overtime hourly rate for each specific employee.
Okay. Motion by Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor McGowan. Any questions? Yes, sir.
No, that's a C. It's just going to be that rate.
Yes.
Okay.
So we send an officer, the officer, we know exactly what the expense is for the county to send that officer that day. They pay that expense specifically.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Preventive maintenance and service contract for communications.
So our communications network has been growing and improving annually. We're doing a lot to work on interoperability with Washington County. And because of that, the annual maintenance is going to be increasing each year. We're currently paying just under $40,000 now. We sent out a request for bids. We only had one company come back, and they give us a bid of $119,232. That's a considerable increase as to over what we're paying now. And in speaking with Mark Neal, there are a number of factors that come into play. With that, we've gone from 4 sites to 7 sites, tower sites, and the state has closed a loophole in their prevailing wage law, which has more than doubled the labor rate. This is something that I'm going to go back and try to negotiate with them somewhat, but since they're the only company that came in and bid with us, I think we're going to be left with an increase in our preventative maintenance contract for communications.
Who's the company?
It is Capital Digitronics.
And their performance has been satisfactory to date?
Mark Neal seems pleased with them.
Okay, that's
Again,
good.
I cannot speak intelligently.
I
on it.
just
This is
remember
something-
when they first took over for two-way, there was some concerns. That's years ago. So. Somebody want to make a motion? Do we have to motion on this, or is that for discussion?
It's not a request now. It was just open for discussion. I wanted you to be aware of it.
Okay. Yes, Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why did we only get one? What have we gotten in the past? I mean, I'm just, not that I'm drilling you.
I don't know. I know that I know that it was sent out through the normal process, and only one organization, one company had an interest in providing us that service. I don't know why. Similarly, we purchased some Dodge vehicles, and we sent out a request to local car dealerships to provide us service on those. And we didn't have any car dealerships that had an interest in providing us services to the Dodges. Something that I'm going to get caught up to speed and try to figure out. I'm not sure at this time.
There's probably like 3 or 4 would do this communication stuff, around. It used to be Wells, two-way, but Capital Digitronics always has been awarded the bid, I would say, for the last 10 years, because they've been the lowest responsible bidder.
I don't know if we've grown to such a level where other companies don't want to take on that responsibility. I mean,
It is complicated with what they're doing now with all the towers and everything, so. Yes?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Do we ever reach out to our capital region counterparts in other counties to see what they're doing, who they're working with? Just kind of a...
Mark's on top of all that.
We work very closely with Washington County. I have a high level of respect for Sheriff Murphy, and I know Tim Hardy is one of their supervisors as far as their emergency communications center. We have a meeting today at 2 o'clock, and much of what they do, we kind of mirror, and we partner together anywhere we can consolidate and save money. I know that we've been doing that in the past, and I'm going to look forward to trying to doing that more in the future. So we have been reaching out, and we'll continue to reach out. I don't know if there would be other companies, in different parts of the state that would be willing to come in. I haven't gone that far to look.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I have one item that Sheriff York asked me to bring up today. There was a matter, the county and one of our deputies was sued by a gentleman, Chris Hansen, not the guy from To Catch a Predator, a different Chris Hansen. And he is a former correction officer, I believe, with a department that not our own. And I think he was beating up his girlfriend, and he was arrested for that. We had a decision to make as to whether to take this to trial or not. We had an offer from the plaintiff for a settlement. The sheriff discussed it with the county attorney and with me, and we decided our witnesses were good, our cause was just. We took it to trial, and it went on Friday last week, 7 jury members, and we got a unanimous decision on both counts in our favor. So a little bit of good news the sheriff wanted you to be aware of.
I think that was reported in today's Post-Star.
It was,
also.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, good article. Anything else? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. And Jim's entering into a pretty big role, and I'm wondering, the next time we meet, Jim, if you could give us kind of like your 100-day plan.
Sure.
What do you expect to accomplish in 100 days? And that's basically, from my experience with big business, any senior leadership position, that's always one of the early metrics. So if the next time, you could kind of give us a plan in terms of what you hope to accomplish in those 100 days.
Definitely.
I'd really appreciate it.
I've been thinking about this move for years, and I'm the type that I will plan, I'll prepare, I'll give a lot of thought. But we've been working through a campaign, a primary campaign in June and a general election here in November. And really I couldn't engage our members or really do anything formally until after the general election. Since the general election, I've been meeting with our command staff, and we have a lot of great minds. Much like this room, there are decades of experience at the Warren County Sheriff's Office. And I really don't want to come in as one person and dictate and say, this is what we're going to do, this is my bright idea. And I put it to them, what are we doing well? Where can we improve? How should we be functioning differently? And I'm already starting to get feedback. The Sheriff's Office is comprised of 4 really specific areas. We have a communications center, civil. I would think that those 2 areas wouldn't see much in the way of change. Our correctional facility, there's going to be a tremendous amount of change that takes place in our correctional facility, and I really want to retain our members. I want to strive to make sure that people who get hired by the Warren County Correctional Facility see that as a career and not a stepping stone. I want to make sure that if people are coming and going, I have a good handle as to why. I want to ensure, Terry and I have talked about this a lot, we really want to make sure that when someone's incarcerated with us, that they're provided with services, that they just don't come in, sit down on a bed and spend time with us. That we really do something to put them in a better position to be successful upon their release. And not looking backwards, looking forwards, I know that we can do a lot more for our community. And we have some really evil people that come through the Warren County Correctional Facility, but we have some decent people who really exercised poor judgment and made bad choices, and we can do more for them, and we plan to. As far as the road patrol goes, again, we have great men and women, and if I can do anything, I want to make sure that those officers pick up their heads when they're in the field, that they engage the community, that we get back to the type of community policing that was in place when I first started 28 years ago. I know that they'll do it, they're going to be excited to do it. It's just been something that's not been an expectation for them. So We'll get there. For the first 100 days, if we could do anything, I want to make sure that we are successful in meeting our requirements for this bail reform and discovery. A month ago, I was terrified by it. We've been really working at it diligently. We have some provisions, some policies, some procedures that are already in place, and they seem to be working. I just had a conversation last night with DA Carasone. I'm no longer terrified. I know that we're going to be able to do this. I know that it's going to be a much greater workload, but again, I hope you have an understanding of how great our staff is at the Sheriff's Office. We're going to do it. We're going to do it well. So if I can do anything in those first 3 months, it's going to make sure that we're successful in that area.
Any other questions? Yes.
If I could just jump in on that one as well. Jim and I talk at least once a week, transition stuff, and I got to commend the staff there for getting their sea legs early. It's somewhat of an advantage, I think, to have a couple of months where Jim and his top people get to learn how everything works before the show is theirs. On the bail reform, the board, starting with the budget officer, has provided the positions that we believe are necessary. The work being done with the DA's office is very good. I think that we're very well prepared to take on those discovery mandates, and I'm looking forward to working with Jim on what he's got in mind for the jail.
Thanks, Jim. We have a couple other items, too, we need to do, right?
District Attorney's Office is not on the
Thank you.
agenda.
You're good.
They have 2 positions that are going to be created through the budget. They wanted to get approval to fill them so that they're ready to go on January 1st. They're an 8th Assistant District Attorney and Legal Clerk number 5.
We want to make a motion. Motion by Supervisor Simpson, second by Supervisor McGowan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else come in front of criminal justice? Other than go have a cup of coffee, your next meeting will be 10:25 and Gene's running it, so we'll see what happens. Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
Back in the saddle again.
10 minutes, that's it.